Hi, this is my friend Jenny Sarantis that I actually just met yesterday at a little activity that our homeschool group uh, sponsored to just keep the kids connected through the summer. And I had never, Jenny's new to our group. She's actually, Jenny, do you live here in Oregon City?
No, we're in Portland, really closer to Happy Valley, but yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you're not too far from us, but anyway, yeah, you're just exploring options. So I just invited you on to talk to my audience about your experience, how you mentioned yesterday that you've been doing this for 15 years. So you're a veteran.
Right. Well, through one child who's now 18, almost 19. So it's been a number of years. Yeah, we are new to we're returning to the Pacific Northwest. We lived here years ago and had to go down to California for my husband's work for 8 years in Sacramento. And now we're back again. So we're just really loving the area. So yeah,
Cool.
you wanted to know about my homeschooling experience then?
Yeah. How did you get involved in this? Were your kids ever in the public system?
No, they weren't. Maybe once. There was a hybrid that my now 18-year-old wanted to try, and that happened for one semester. But our homeschooling experience is that my husband and I, after we got married, we didn't have kids for 12 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
So the time that we were blessed through adoption with our kids, when it came time for my oldest to go to school, the school nearest to us was a full day kindergarten. And I thought, wait, a full day? Really? Why? What am I going to do all day long? I mean, there are things I could do. I could go get a job, I could do something, but I'm like, wait, I waited all this time to care for this child. I'm not ready to hand this child over to someone else to care for. And a few years before this, we just started meeting amazing people who homeschooled. I worked with would be like can-do type of people, and I'd find out they were homeschooled. I'd go to events or church or whatever, and I'd work with the youth or the children, and the ones that would talk to me as an adult, look me in the eye, not be so peer focused, I'd find out, oh, they're homeschooled.
So this was happening here in the Portland area, or in the Pacific Northwest area.
We lived in Eugene at the time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. And so when we started shopping around for schools for our little 5-year-old in Eugene, I got a list. There was like 20 schools she could attend. Is that the hippie influence down there? That there's so many educational options.
Right.
But one of them on the list was called Home Source. And we went and checked it out because it was a homeschooling arm. And we went to all these others. We went to the family school, and there's this Spanish immersion, there's Japanese immersion, there's Chinese immersion, I think. There was one that was tech. There was one that was arts. I can't remember what they're all called, more focused. So we went to the one that was by the high school that a lot of our friends' kids went to. And it was really scary, the high school students wandering around there. And I thought, is this a safe environment for my child? Anyway, hadn't heard that anything bad about it. The families we knew loved it, but just seeing the high school students walking around was,
a little disconcerting. Yeah.
Anyway, it just was, take note of that. And then we went to this Home Source place, and it was the ugliest cinder block building. And it was like that a dentist office next to it or something. It was, but there was a class getting out, and they were high school students getting out. So this was like 0 to 12, and they would have, it was just like a supplement for homeschoolers. They can go there and take classes. And they had come out with a lollipop, all these homeschoolers from this class. And my 5-year-old was just excited about the lollipop and was like, and so one of them looked down and saw a child. She walked back in, got her a lollipop, and came back out again.
Oh.
And I said, I want my kids to be like that.
Something, yeah.
The kids were clean cut. They weren't pants on the ground. They weren't, trying to act tough. And I'm like, oh, this is a very different environment. And my husband asked, are they all members of our church? And I said, no, this is just, because all the kids were kind of clean cut, and we didn't hear swearing. We didn't hear loud, weird music or, whatever. And so that kind of sealed it for us. We really felt prompted that that's where we should start. So And we had friends who we're still friends with today who homeschooled their kids. And we had families that were just great examples of this. Now, this was scary because my husband and I are both products of the public school system. And so it really was. I just said to myself, okay, every year we're just going to evaluate this. And if it's still working, we'll keep going. If it's not working, then we'll try something else.
Right.
So, and that's kind of been our mantra. But from the beginning, we were introduced to the Thomas Jefferson education model by friends that we're still now back in a homeschool group with them in the North Plains area.
Okay, so question about that. So did you end up going to that or having your child go to that?
When we lived in Eugene.
That place?
Moved from Eugene when Ellie was 8. My oldest was 8.
So she was attending the supplemental place. And at home you were doing Thomas Jefferson.
Right. We were just trying to follow the, inspire, not require.
Yeah, and phases of learning and all that. Yeah.
Have her find her mission and get an education to match it. And it really was just a lot of play. And then the fun classes she could take at this supplemental place. They weren't really heavy, but they were just a lot of fun. So we then moved up to North Plains ourselves and started up with this other homeschool group, which is really heavy in the Thomas Jefferson education model. And I loved to see what the scholars were doing. And I couldn't wait for my kids to be a part of that. And then we moved away. We moved away right before Ellie. Then we tried to piece together our own Thomas Jefferson education while we lived in California. And homeschooling in California is different because of the laws. You have to be signed up with a school. And we found a charter school that was very lenient. And in fact, the woman that we worked with loves Thomas Jefferson education. She does it with her kids and introduced us to other families that did this. And my friend here, she introduced me or gave me the name and number of someone down where we lived who was certified in Lemmy stuff, and Lemmy being some of the programs that the scholar programs they did with the Thomas Jefferson education idea. And we got involved there doing Shakespeare and all the other
good stuff. Yeah,
it was good. And then we moved here just in time for my second child then to get involved as a scholar. So anyway, so my kids are just, I have an 18-year-old who's now graduated, almost 19, a 13-year-old, and then the 6-year-old.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and I'm just, a lot of people that I've been interviewing are involved with the Thomas Jefferson education model. A few aren't. Some are just starting to explore it because they have little tiny kids. Tracy that you met, of course, she's just gotten her feet wet this last year, but she's like full in now. I mean, it's all about this. And it's just such a wonderful, eye-opening experience for her to say that her children are fine the way they are and they can progress at the rate that they progress. And the pressure is off with the grades and they have to know this and this and this and this by the time they're 18. And so I'm kind of getting a lot of smattering of people, which is my objective. My objective is to show people how they can mentor their children, whether they do the full-on Thomas Jefferson education model or not, but just simply start learning how to inspire, not require. It's the principles, right? How to allow for interest-based learning at an early age, and from an early age, and get away from pre-planned curriculums, a lot of them. Because my experience was sort of like that. You're lucky because you had people in your life. I didn't have anybody in my life. And I ended up having to take my kids out when my oldest was going into 8th grade. And I've told this story before, but I didn't have a group. I didn't know anything. Thomas Jefferson education hadn't even been written yet. This was in 1997. So it would be another 4 years before that was even written, let alone any kind of Lemmy stuff and, any of that. And by the time my younger kids were getting older, we actually did kind of a hybrid, because here in Oregon, you can treat the public system as more like your smorgasbord, right? I mean, you have, and actually the district, in order to pull in the homeschoolers and receive, state and federal funds for them, they actually set up kind of a system like you were talking about, the first one that you saw, which was they did Spanish and band and some other classes, art, just fun things that you could take your kids to in the afternoon as homeschoolers. And then they could say, yeah, they're part of this public system and we can get federal money for them. But then some of the other, normally public school parents got wind of it and they shut it down. So we lost that. But my kids started doing kind of a hybrid because they could go to the junior high and the high school and take art or band or wrestle in our case, or track or whatever, and just do some fun things there. And they ended up going up to the community college at 15 because I didn't even know these groups existed. They were all on the west side and never came into contact with them. But anyway, there are lots of ways that we can mentor our children and educate them. There's just lots of options. So the Thomas Jefferson model is really awesome. And I'm actually just getting more exposed to the scholar phase of that, even though I read the books years ago. When they finally came out, it was kind of like, I'm in my own groove now. So I probably am not going to try to switch my kids over to this. They're going to fight me on it. And that's not the point of education, right? So your 6-year-old is excited she's already part of the group on the west side. Is that correct? She's
correct. Yeah.
You guys have all been.
Yeah, which is just really the love of learning. The core phase is what she's in right now, which is just really teaching them right from wrong, truth from error, and positive interaction with others. And so that's the phase she's in. Yeah.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about exactly what are the specific activities that they do in that. I mean, that you do get together once a week, right?
Yes.
And then, so what does that look like?
It really is just the creative ideas of the people in charge. So you just think of your students and think, what would they like to do and what's available around us? So it's a lot of field trips. We, myself and another woman, were in charge of her class in the morning for the first semester, because really it was just kind of babysitting, because they were the ones left behind when the scholars were there and the moms were teaching, kind of a thing. And then the second half, we had more of because of COVID, they wouldn't let us all meet together. And then the second half, I don't know why I'm explaining all this anyway, but I've been working with the youth over there for now. And every week we would try to come up with, a book, a game, stories, that all go together, maybe having something to do with something going on in our lives. Like for her class, the girls came up with the idea they wanted to be the Tiger Club. And we had a Tiger Tea Party at the end of the year. And we also did learning about the voting system. We read Duck for President, and then we did activities that go around that. And then once we got a bigger group, we would always have story time, singing time, a craft, and then outdoor play.
Okay.
And so it really is, I know with the older group, I think it's the Love of Learning group, they did a lot more. We did do a couple of field trips where we went to the park or went to someone's nearby farm where they had baby goats. And
fun.
And
yeah.
So just things like that. You can see it's just really sampling, just helping them expose them to a lot of interesting things and creative play. I know when I was with the group before we moved down to California, we started what was called Fun Club. And the Fun Club, we would of course do stories and things like that. But then at the end, for the last half an hour, we would just bring stuff, games, Legos, old typewriters, pile of books. And we would just say, go at it, just have fun with whatever you want to do over there. And the kids loved that part because it was just creative play. And they would interact with one another, depending on the child, or they would, just pull something out interesting to them. There's just a bunch of sampling of fun things.
Cool. So another thing you mentioned to me yesterday that I really wanted you to talk more about, because it resonated with my personal experience as well, is that your daughter was a late reader. So tell me all about and the challenges and how you worked with that, and were you worried? Did you have what was your experience with that?
Right. Well, my first daughter was reading before the age of 5. So when I was trying to put her in kindergarten too, that was something to take into consideration. I thought she's going to be so bored. And then this one has picked up reading pretty quickly as well. But my middle daughter has or had been diagnosed with dyslexia. And I had her tested just because I needed to. In California, they test her every year, and they kept testing her at a really low grade, and I needed to let them know why. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's the only reason why that we even know. Well, we considered it was so cute when she was little. She would say "pa" instead of "up" when she wanted me to pick her up. She'd say "pa."
Wow.
It's kind of a little twisted, and we just
Yeah.
walk away. But it's not something that we ever labeled her for, and that was really nice because we were able to move along with her. The schools, I've known people who have had some reading delays, and they hate reading now because they just felt dumb. They felt, in the school system, less. And so it's so nice in the Thomas Jefferson education idea is that you just keep them in that core phase a little longer or that love of learning phase a little longer, depending on their ability. And so we, anyway, had her, reading didn't really open up for her until just a couple of years ago. And maybe by the time she was 10, she was reading picture books. And then 11, she started branching out to larger books. And just as we came here then, she entered her scholar phase. She wanted to go into the scholar classes. And I was very worried about that because that is some heavy duty reading.
Yeah. Shakespeare. It's Shakespeare. Yeah.
Yes, but because of the positive peer pressure that are in those groups and because of her desire, and she was ready. She was finally ready to take this on. She blossomed in those classes. With just a little help, not much from me, to help her read through some of the things. The majority of it, she did it all on her own. And even writing is difficult and things like that. But no, she did her papers. She did. So it was really nice waiting because I think one of my goals as a homeschooling mom is that my children become lifelong learners. And it's not, let's just cram this information down your throat and then they hate learning for the rest of their life. No, we're lifelong learners. And so let's move at your own pace. And then when you're ready to go, then they just take off. And that's where she's at now. She's just loving, learning. So.
Right. And that was precisely the experience that we had. And although we weren't in a group, we weren't doing, Thomas Jefferson education in a group. By that time I had read the books and I understood that we just give that time. And even if there is a learning disability, sometimes that self-corrects if it's not forced.
Right.
So we did the same thing. My oldest daughter, as I mentioned yesterday, could sound out words. We had done hooked on phonics, early on. And she had actually been in public school until through 3rd grade, I think. It's too long ago. I don't remember, 2nd or 3rd grade. She had a really negative experience in kindergarten. She had a really negative experience in 2nd grade. And 3rd grade was still a huge struggle. And she was coming home with stomach aches and headaches every day. And this was a very active, almost ADD kind of kid. And it was one of the reasons that I ended up just pulling them because I had issues. The son that was older than her was having a lot of academic issues. And then the son younger than her was having academic issues, even in kindergarten. And one summer I just said, I think I just need to do this. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't, the internet really wasn't around at the time. It was like you could just look stuff up on the internet. I didn't have a book. I didn't have a person. I just said, whatever's going on, I'm going to have to try to do better. And then we were in California as well. And it was illegal at that time. I mean, perfectly illegal to do it. I'm not sure. I mean, it really felt like jumping off a cliff, like I might have social services at my door,
Right.
right?
Oh, no,
And
totally.
I was just going into a pregnancy with my sixth child. So, and we were moving. My husband was selling his accounting practice and we were moving. So, anyway, finally the books, I went to a couple of, homeschool conventions in Utah, and I heard Rachel and Oliver DeMille speak. And then the book came out in 2001. And so I read that. And so by the time my daughter's getting up into the junior high area, I stopped being afraid. For some reason, I had this calmness and come over me. And I just said, we're just going to read. I'd always read to my kids. I was going to continue to read and just do all these other activities that we were doing. And one day when she was 12, she opened a book and started reading and understanding it. It was just kind of weird that way. And at 15 and a half, she came to me at the beginning of her sophomore year in high school. And she said, Mom, I want to go up to the community college. And I said, where'd you get that idea? And I don't even know where she got that idea, but she had decided and had been looking into things and decided that she wanted to pursue just go right on into college. And so she did. And she started below college level in reading, but she was way up high in math and science. And she graduated 3 years later with honors.
Oh.
With honors. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, I completely relaxed. And I just said, this is a thing. This is real, where people's brains and their desires are the factor in educational success. It has nothing to do with curriculums, right?
Right.
Curriculums can be great. I mean, there's lots of great curriculums out there, but if a child is not really intensely interested in it, it's the worst curriculum. So
we've never used it. We've never used one.
Yeah, I never used a curriculum. Yeah.
They say to schedule a subject, not content or whatever. Schedule time,
Right.
not. And so we always say, okay, today's math day. What do you want to do?
Right.
Shall we cook? Shall we, watch the video?
Yeah, we did. Maybe I should say we did use Sax and math, but I would say we're going to set a timer for 30 minutes. We're going to just get this out of the way in the morning. But I have math people. All but my one daughter I had one daughter that didn't like math. Everybody else liked math. So we would just say, let's sit at 30 minutes. Whatever you get done in 30 minutes, great. Don't worry if it's not a whole lesson. If it's 2 lessons, great. Let's just bite off something and chew on it, and then we'll go on.
Right. And I love that because you're catering it to your students. That's what this is all about. There's no specific way of doing that. If it is something that helps your children thrive, then you do it.
Yeah. I mean, you can't have everything like that. Right. And of course we integrated math into lots of different things as well. It's applied math. We had our little business and we had lots of things, but anyway, so the future's bright. And how is your oldest now? How old is your oldest now?
She is 18. She's going to be 19.
Your oldest child? How old?
Yeah.
Okay. What are her plans?
Well, she decided, and this is important too, that we realize that as they become scholar age, we turn their education over to them and we mentor them, we help them, and that's really important. But she really, really wanted to have a high school experience. We didn't put her in high school. And with COVID happening, that really, that really was anyway, she's always been very driven and always reading something and always, she had made plans ever since she was, 6 to go to NYU or Cambridge or some college. And when COVID hit, she decided she wanted to graduate early. And so she graduated in 2020, really with no fanfare or anything. But she decided she would follow the curriculum of our charter school to get that done. And now she says that it kind of beat the love of learning out of her. I was worried as she was going through that. I'm like, are you sure? Because she was studying on her own, a math book and a science book, just getting the papers in, just getting it done. And I'm like, Ellie, I feel that this isn't, serving you. She's like, no, I got it. I'm just going to graduate, get it done. Because she realized she had advanced so much that she had her first semester was her junior semester that year. And her second semester became her senior semester because she realized, oh, I just have to finish these 2 classes and I can meet the California requirements for graduation.
Wow.
But just getting those few things done, it kind of stalled her love of learning. So, but I feel like she kind of just, what she calls, took a gap year. She moved right out. She though kind of floundered, and then she came home again to get some money, and then she went back out again and kind of floundered, and now she's back again. But it's all part of the learning process. We're here to mentor them, and
Right.
what I'm finding with my kids too, they have some anxiety issues and things like that I think have been heightened by the COVID situation, and so just helping them deal with those things and then move forward. But she is driven. She is a driven. I think she's getting back to where she was before. Right now, she's working over 40 hours a week.
Wow.
And trying to get back out there again. And she's got a plan she wants to go into law enforcement, but like a detective or something. Anyway, so she's got
Cool.
a plan how to get there.
Yeah, and my oldest is 30, going to be 38 in September. And I have a daughter that's, then my daughter's 32 now, and a son that's 30. And so I'm a little bit ahead of you on this. What 20 years ahead of you, right? And what I'll tell you about that is that some of that doesn't end. I mean, all 6 of my children have followed different paths. Most of them did a little bit of high school. Like my daughter never did any classes there, but she did track and basketball her freshman year before she went, I just don't want to have anything to do with this. My oldest son, of course, we didn't even start homeschooling him till he was going into 8th grade. So that was a much tougher go. And he had one interest in mind. It was orange and it bounced, and there was nothing else for him in life. He was going to be an NBA star. And so, he really had kind of a circuitous route, and he didn't graduate, of course, from high school. He dabbled a little bit in it. He did some online classes. He went on a mission. He came home, or he got his GED, and he went on a mission. They came home, went to BYUI, flunked out, found I just hated college that way. And then he went to the Marines, and that was the wake-up call for him. And now he's a very successful lawyer in Las Vegas, married, and has 4 little girls, and doing amazing. But he had this period of time where, kind of like your daughter saying, it's like, after Drew flunked out, it was like he came home, and I said, you can be home if you're working or getting back to community college, getting your grades back up to get back to school, but you can't just sit around, And I ended up having to say at some point, because he wasn't going to do that. He actually moved in with his sister. And I said, well, you only have till this date. And then you either have to move out. I don't care if you're on the street. I mean, if that's what you had to go learn, it's some tough love there, but he went in the Marines. So that was great. My son who's 30, my daughter who's 32 she's in an occupational therapy assistant program. She's gone back to school. She was a massage therapist for has been all these years, and is going back to school. My son who's 30 got his degree, went on a mission in Taiwan, came home, found out that his big plans were not at all what he thought they were going to be. He came out at 26, and then he's now going to the University of Utah in dental school, but he's 30. And all of my children are successful, and I have 3 more, and they're all doing good too. But finding today, there's not a clear route anymore like there used to be. It just isn't like that anymore, because the world is changing so fast, and the economic circumstances are changing so fast. The social circumstances, even the church that we belong to, is changing so fast. Everything is just, it's breakneck. And so the kids these days are having to learn how to pivot a lot.
Right.
And it's very difficult. and it's very difficult. And so, with home education, you give them, despite the fact that it looks like you're not going in a straight line, they are having to learn as they go, very, in a very intense way, right? Learn how to deal with this world in a really intense way. And so that relationship, it's that relationship, right? It's two things. It's the relationship that you have with them, and it's having taught them how to learn to love to learn.
Yeah. I think that has equipped our kids better to be able to think and to survive this, rather than, to maybe do become homeless. I don't know what.
And fold. And just fold. Because, or just despair. Because gosh, it's really hard out there. There's a lot of that going on, and it makes me so sad. So that's kind of why I'm doing this, because I really feel like many parents are kind of going, can I do this? And is this going to be a good thing for our family? And I want to show average people like you and I, who have been down the road or are starting down that road. And it's not that it isn't without challenges, right? I mean, we could probably talk for another half an hour about some of the challenges we've had. We don't want it to sound like it's all roses, because it's not. It is hard to make the transition, right, to having your kids around.
And because we've done it from the beginning, I have loved it. I have loved having my kids around. I've loved being at every step of their learning. It's been fun. I think, oh, you know what? They learned about this because I introduced it to them. I loved being a part of that process. And I love the flexibility that comes. We travel as a family a lot, and it's been wonderful just to have the flexibility and continue our learning in Hawaii or New York or wherever, to mentor them along life's path, to be there with them.
And I felt the same. Yeah, I've totally felt the same way. In fact, when I pulled my kids out, the thought that came to my mind was, we just had this wonderful summer, and the thought that came to my mind is, it doesn't have to end. It doesn't have to end. It can be, you can keep having these fun times with your kids. But what advice would you give to somebody who doesn't really necessarily feel that way? If you are feeling like, I don't know if I can be around my kids 24/7 and never have a break, what do you think you could tell people that are kind of in that dilemma? I think I've lost a connection here. Whoops. Okay. We're back.
Disconnected somehow. Don't know.
Did you hear the question?
I did. What kind of advice would I give? One of the greatest things is to have a support group. And it's wonderful to get together with a co-op or whatever. It doesn't have to be in California. We just got together with like-minded moms of all kinds of backgrounds. I went to a number of different homeschool groups, and we'd have park days, and we'd talk, and the kids would play, and I would get all kinds of ideas, and I get all kinds of support. And I would say, I'm having trouble with this. What do you do? And so you just have to create your own support system. And if you can be part of an amazingly organized co-op, yay. If not, just do the park days, or just do it because it all becomes good for you. And also the idea that you're focusing on your education and you become an example to your kids. I think that's such an important part. And I look at it as over the years, I hope my kids have always seen that I have researched anything and everything. I've always just insatiably wanting to learn. And a lot of times, or reading a book or working on something, or even my daughter the other day said, I don't stop saying that, because I'm like, I will drive by someone, what's their story? Or I wonder what happened at that house to make it look like, anyway, just always asking questions, just so that kids realize that you are a lifelong learner as well. So those are my two things.
Oh, that is excellent, excellent advice. I love that. As I've often told people that ask me, how in the world do you, how do you do this? How do you stay sane? And I'd say, well, here's the thing. I teach my children from what I love. I happen to love history and literature, and I also do a lot of crafty things. So that's how I taught my kids. And um, I never had to gin up enthusiasm because I
Hey,
was so excited about the things that I was learning, and I couldn't wait to tell them about it. And they felt it, and we taught a lot through music too. So teach from where you love, right? And
love that.
if you're a writer, then teach from writing. I mean, there's all kinds of things you could teach. If you sew, teach from sewing. If you like to cook, teach from cooking. There's just all kinds of whatever makes you happy. So that's great advice. Thank you for that. And thank you for taking the time with me and helping to promote something that is just wonderful for families and wonderful for kids, giving people an alternative. I really appreciate it, Jenny, and I can't wait to get to know you better this next year.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, talk to you later. Have a great
All
day.
right. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.